Hello, and welcome to the second webinar on the CCDF IT environment scan. We are excited to be with you today and appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be with us. My name is Meredith Russell, and I am a childcare consultant with the Data and Information Systems Consultation Center, also known as DISC. I'm joined today by my co-presenters from DISC, Donna Seymour and Ryan Berger, both of whom are DISC technology consultants. This is the second webinar on the CCDF IT environment scan. If you were not able to join us for the first webinar, no problem. You can find the recording at the link that we will put in the chat box, and we'll also provide an overview today to get you caught up. If you did attend the first webinar, we'll be covering some new information in more depth, so we're glad you joined us again. We will also have plenty of time for questions and answers throughout today's webinar. You are welcome to use the Q&A or the chat box in Zoom to ask questions during our time together. You can also enable closed captioning at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This webinar is being recorded and will be available shortly. So again, today's webinar is about the CCDF Information Technology Environment Scan. We will begin with a brief overview of the Data and Information System Consultation Center, or DISC, and we will then review how to complete the scan and discuss how the scan results will be shared back to you. We will also have sections for questions and answers. We will close out today's webinar with information on upcoming TA that DISC will provide about completing the scan. So let's take a few minutes to provide a brief overview of DISC. DISC is here to provide technical assistance to CCDF lead agencies on the intersection of IT and childcare, specifically CCDF. DISC is a resource for you as you enhance family and provider technology user experiences, increase access to CCDF and childcare, and achieve more equitable outcomes for children, families, and providers. There are many aspects involved in achieving these goals, and IT systems can be key tools. As you know, IT systems can support everything from enrollment to eligibility determination to payment to licensing. And DISC supports approaching these aspects holistically and comprehensively so that your CCDF policy goals, outcomes, and family and provider experiences are all aligned. Systems should be designed with the needs and experiences of the families and providers in mind. That way, the system design is improved for the people at the center of your CCDF program. We understand the importance of enhancing, upgrading, modifying, or procuring new IT systems while you administer the CCDF program and implement the 2024 CCDF final rule, all of which ultimately enhances outcomes for children, families, and providers. DISC was established by the Office of Childcare as a member of OCC's Child Care Technical Assistance Network, or CCTAN. DISC offers technical assistance in multiple ways. The first support for you is our webpage, where you can access our CCDF IT Resource Clearinghouse. The clearinghouse is full of IT articles and resources, and we'll put the link in the chat box here in just a minute. DISC also offers informational webinars and peer-to-peer events, such as our IT Matters series. These peer-to-peer events enable lead agencies to have conversations with each other about various IT topics related to CCDF administration. Additionally, beginning this winter, we will offer intensive consultation to lead agencies. Intensive consultation is tailored or individual technical assistance to help lead agencies develop and implement IT strategic roadmaps. And more information will be coming to you this fall about our intensive consultation. So now I will turn to my colleague, Donna, to talk in more detail about the scan. Donna.
I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Last week, the CCDF IT environment scan was distributed to each CCDF administrator via Qualtrics. That's the survey tool used by ACF. The scan is currently available for completion and will remain open through September 19th of 2024. As a brief reminder, the information you provide in the scan will only be used for analytical and reporting purposes and will not be made public in any way that would, especially not any way that would allow your responses to be known to anybody else. DISC will be sharing individual copies of your scan responses back to you, as well as summary level aggregate data that helps you better understand how the functionality, capabilities, and satisfaction of your own systems relate with other CCDF lead agencies. We'll talk more about what to expect and what we will provide to you during today's webinar. Please email disc@klscott.associates.com if you did not receive an email with the link to the CCDF IT environment scan or have technical issues accessing Qualtrics. And again, the scan went only to CCDF administrators, so not everybody on this call will have received a scan. DISC understands how important it is to have effective data and IT systems that meet the needs of CCDF administrators, childcare providers, and most importantly, the families who are accessing quality and affordable childcare services. In order for organizations to enhance or improve their IT systems, the first step is to assess IT systems and create a baseline of where the organization is with their IT. The scan provides the lead agency with a baseline of how data and IT systems are used to support families, providers, and lead agency staff. The baseline identifies what type of IT is in place and how satisfied the lead agency is with the IT. The scan helps identify strengths and needs that can drive future decisions about your IT systems. The scan can be used to determine the capabilities of data and IT systems in support of your delivery of services, in support of your program outcomes, and in support of your organizational mission. The scan can also help identify specific areas or functions of IT systems that are not human-centered, that need to be modernized to take advantage of new technology capabilities, or limiting the power and the impact of the data or your ability to use data, or are creating other pressure points for your organization. The CCDF IT environment scan asks questions about your data and IT systems across key IT topics such as project management, data management analytics, and data sharing. The scan includes the important functions of your CCDF program, or what is also called business functions. We will discuss business functions in more detail later. Many lead agencies collaborate with partners or share technologies with other departments or agencies to implement business functions, and the scan may help to discover additional opportunities and areas of alignment. We know that many lead agencies have reviewed their IT capabilities either through regular monitoring and quality assurance processes, or perhaps through procurement and modernization efforts. We hope that you will use some of that information to inform your scan responses, acknowledging that while this may not be the first time you have reviewed and assessed your data and IT systems, it is the first time that OCC is collecting this information in a standardized manner from all lead agencies. You may be asking yourself how the scan will benefit your lead agency. So let's talk a minute about that. The scan results will be provided to you in a report form showing your current baseline regarding the level of implementation and satisfaction in relationship to the aggregate or average responses for all other lead agencies. It will document current IT vendors and software providers that you're contracting with so that we can understand whether other lead agencies are experiencing similar successes or issues, and if they did experience similar issues, how they might have resolved them. The scan will also identify planned issues, and if they did experience any issues, then we'll work with them to understand how to resolve those. The scan will also identify planned improvements and priorities for the next 3 years so that we can identify others who are also doing similar work. We envision that the scan may provide data and a catalyst for collaboration with other lead agencies that may have valuable insights on effective technology uses in certain areas of the CCDF program. The report may help in conversations with your data and IT partners about planned improvements. It will also provide a way to benchmark your current IT environment across multiple categories and see progress over time through annually updated scans. Information from the scan can be used by lead agencies to identify specific areas of your programs related to IT that may warrant additional investment. Overall, it can help you to think through how data and IT systems can support the delivery of affordable, equitable, and high-quality childcare services. The scan results and outputs will be shared with Office of Child Care Leadership to identify opportunities, set priorities, and advance the use of data in delivering accessible, affordable, equitable, and high-quality childcare through the CCDF program. You may also use your scan results to inform conversations with funders, with policymakers, legislative partners, families, and providers to increase the availability of childcare and enhance the experiences of all CCDF partners. Finally, information from the scan will inform the development of technical assistance tools. It'll increase cross-lead agency sharing of data and IT system resources and promising practices, and ensure that your planned IT modernization efforts are addressing the needs of your CCDF program and are maximizing financial investments in data and IT systems. And in turn, that should free up additional funding to invest directly in families and providers. DISC will also use the results to create technical assistance that best meets your needs so that we can support lead agencies' IT goals at any stage of their data and IT systems journey. Some lead agencies will have one key staff, such as the CCDF administrator, who will be able to fill out the scan. Many lead agencies will want to reach out to other staff or partners to gather that information. Either way, lead agencies will have the scan questions in a downloadable version to share with staff or partners as needed, as well as a lead agency specific link for that key person to enter the results. You have several ways in which you can seek input from your staff. The first method is called the single response method. That's the most routine input method that we expect will be used. In this case, you, the CCDF administrator, will provide your responses to the scan. Your responses may be informed by your staff, but they will not have access to the scan in Qualtrics. When using this method, we recommend you send the Microsoft Word version of the scan that is provided to you in the Qualtrics system to your staff. They should then provide their responses back to you for your consideration. Another method of receiving their input might include meeting with them in a group setting to share experiences and input. Some of this pre-work, as it was recently called at STAM, can be helpful for reviewing the scan questions and response options, as well as the topics and content that it is collecting information on. We believe that this effort can also serve as a useful checkpoint for how data and IT systems have been implemented and how well they are serving their intended purposes. Some lead agencies may wish to use multiple responses. That's the second option for responding to the scan. If you want to share the scan in Qualtrics with your staff, you can do that, such as a project manager or chief technology officer, somebody in your IT department, and have them complete their own version of the CCDF IT environment scan. DISC can generate a unique survey link for their use in completing the survey. Please send us an email at disc@klscottassociates.com and we'll work with you to obtain the email addresses for those staff with whom you wish to share the scan. We will also work with you and talk about whether you want to limit the access to specific sections within the scan, whether you want to average the responses that you get when multiple staff members respond to the same question, and other fine points to make sure that when we reflect the responses in the report, that we're reflecting them the way that you want to see them. If you have other questions, or if you think of other methods and ways you want to share the scan, be sure to contact us and we'll help you implement them so that we get the responses we need while also meeting your needs. And again, send us an email at disc@klscottassociates.com. The scan is provided in both English and Spanish versions for your convenience. You can even toggle between those languages as you complete the scan in Qualtrics. And there are no worries there. Your selections, the responses that you make will be recorded as a single response. So toggle as much as you want back and forth from the languages. You don't need to complete the scan in one sitting either. Qualtrics automatically saves your progress as you complete the questions in the scan. The scan will be available both through a desktop browser as well as a smartphone or a tablet. And again, you can turn those features off in Qualtrics. If you don't want to see the mobile version, you can just click that little icon and it will toggle off and all you'll see is the desktop. We want to emphasize that while the scan is voluntary, you may complete as much of the scan as you are able to that is relevant to your specific programs and data systems. However, you will get the most comprehensive perspective by completing all relevant portions. Individual and identifiable scan responses will not be shared across lead agencies, so we encourage your open and honest feedback on the ways in which your data and IT systems work well to support the CCDF program and where there's opportunity for improvement. Because the scan is collecting this type of information for the first time for OCC, establishing a baseline is crucial for identifying and implementing improvements over time and understanding the priorities of lead agencies. We want to be clear that no information from the scan will be used in monitoring compliance or grant allocation decisions by OCC. So at this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Ryan, who will walk us through how the scan works and give us some examples. Over to you, Ryan.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Appreciate that. And hello, everybody. It's great to see you again. I hope you're having a great start to your week. Yes, as Donna mentioned, we're going to walk through a couple of examples regarding the CCDF IT environment scan. So again, we know that we're asking you to share your valuable time, your knowledge, insights, and experiences, and in some cases, to collaborate with data and IT partners beyond your team or organization. So we want to reiterate how your completion of the scan can be helpful to you. It will help you to critically assess how satisfied you are with the current functionality of your IT systems and development practices, and whether your IT and data systems are meeting expectations and requirements. So we know that there's, just as there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to the CCDF program, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to collecting the information that you might need to complete the scan. So we want to spend a few minutes unpacking certain scan questions and talking about how you can best understand them, given the structure of your CCDF program, given the data and IT partners who you work with, and really how technology is used to support the CCDF program for your lead agency. So the scan has been developed to collect information across different aspects of CCDF and technology. The scan gathers your responses on the general data and IT system capabilities of your lead agency. It also collects information on the approaches you may be considering to incorporate the provisions of the 2024 CCDF final rule into your information technology. And lastly, how data and IT systems support various CCDF business functions, such as eligibility and enrollment, subsidy payments for providers and families, and consumer education. So if you've had the opportunity to open the CCDF IT environment scan in Qualtrics, you will have seen how the scan is structured, and you'll have started to get a sense of the questions in the scan. So the ways in which these systems are developed and deployed, we know that they're certainly going to look very different across lead agencies and may even look different within the agency, depending on your organizational structure, depending on the number of data and IT systems that are used, and really the types of internal or external software development and support that is provided to you. So whether a system is specific to CCDF or supports multiple programs in an enterprise fashion, it may also determine how you think about and respond to each question across the business functions. So given this context, we'll provide some additional information and clarification on some of the questions that are provided in the scan. Most of the questions have two corresponding Likert scales for you to respond to for each question. One scale measures the extent of implementation for how data and IT systems support a given administrative or business function of CCDF, and the second scale measures your satisfaction with that implementation approach. Let's look at an example. So we'll start with question G1. The statement that you're asked to respond to is, my lead agency uses a process to identify data and IT needs to support the CCDF program that includes both first input from all impacted parties, including people responsible for CCDF business processes. Example given is licensing, eligibility, enrollment, or payment. And second includes people responsible for providing, such as developing or purchasing, and supporting the data and IT systems. So we want to break this down a little bit, and we want to emphasize that this question is focusing on those who are responsible for CCDF business processes and those who are responsible for providing and supporting the data and IT systems. Again, the example here is through development or purchasing. So think about, for example, your lead agency administrator, other agency leadership, a chief technology officer or chief information officers, also somebody like a chief procurement officer, as well as others who might have a full-time leadership responsibility for investing in public programs, managing technologies, and aligning strategic priorities across business functions. So the scan asks separately in questions G12 and G13 about how your partners are engaged in the design and testing of data and IT systems. Examples here might include lead agency personnel, as well as providers and families. So this question, G1, is not asking necessarily about human-centered design or user testing, some of those task level quality assurance process steps we might be familiar with. It's instead asking about how the CCDF lead agency is engaging with those strategic organizational partners to identify how technology and IT modernization efforts can better support CCDF goals. Our next example is question G4. So this question asks about how data and IT systems are documented to show their relationships with other systems and how they share data. This question highlights the various ways a lead agency might use technology to support the CCDF program and may implement the same concept of data sharing in many different ways. So for example, a lead agency might use different systems across government departments to manage tasks like background checks, subsidy payments, consumer education websites, and eligibility and enrollment. So these systems, of course, often need to exchange data with each other. This can happen in different ways, such as a real-time API for eligibility data, or it might look like weekly or monthly uploads for subsidy payments. So there's not a specific level of documentation or a standard that would be used necessarily to respond to this question. So let's consider, as an example, how two systems might handle conflicting data about a family receiving CCDF support. If data goes into a data warehouse, the most recent data might be considered the correct record when there are multiple records about the same family from multiple sources. If there's bidirectional data sharing between two data systems, think about how often the data transfers are successful or why they might fail. Issues for failure could be due to incomplete documentation or data validation issues, or even missing and null data values. So this question really aims to understand how well data sharing technologies and approaches are working for you in your experience. The next question we want to highlight is G5, and this is related to federal reporting requirements. So this question asks for your perspective on the overall data collection, data management, and report submission process that your lead agency goes through when submitting reports to the Office of Childcare. We're not asking you to respond individually to each part of the question, and we're not necessarily asking you to provide a rating based on either the strongest or the weakest link in the process. We really want you to think about this process and the process you go through holistically when gathering data to meet reporting requirements, even though, of course, we know that these will look very different from one lead agency to another. So think about, an example where maybe you have direct access to the data that is used to compile the ACF reports. Maybe you partner with a business analyst or a reporting specialist to query data from a database or an integrated data system. Or perhaps you get the data and information from a software provider or external partner or vendor, and this might entail its own request and review process on your part. So regardless of what the steps look like for you, and when it comes to gathering data, organizing data, and producing the information, and then submitting their information to OCC, you should really think about this question from your own perspective across all of the steps of the reporting cycle, and really how easy it is for you to submit your reports to OCC. We mentioned this, a few minutes ago, but we want to reiterate that there is no predefined way to complete the scan when collaborating with partners, again, such as an average of all individual responses for scan participants from the same lead agency. So for example, you may gather additional input from your partners, but not utilize Likert scale response options when gaining their input, or you may choose to collect their scored responses and develop an average score for either a given question or a given section. So if you choose to engage multiple respondents in the completion of the scan, just let the DISC team know, and we will work with you to ensure that we reflect the responses the way that you want them to be reflected. So the scan includes several questions that are asking you whether your policies and practices are adequate to ensure your partners deliver what is necessary and expected, or if the people responsible for your data and IT systems have the skills required to support those systems. So these questions should be read in the context of your lead agency, read in the context of your public and private sector partners, and read in the context of the teams that support your data and IT systems, regardless of where they sit organizationally across IT planning and project management offices, procurement departments, or software development teams. So your responses to these types of questions will be driven in large part by the structure and capacity of your lead agency, as well as your collaboration with other governmental partners and the role of external providers and vendors to support your data and IT systems. So if you manage most or all of your data and IT systems internally within your lead agency and don't necessarily rely on other governmental partners or external software providers to manage your data and IT systems, then you should simply respond to these questions as far as you do in fact receive any external support from partners outside of your lead agency. And then we'd like you to consider the support that you receive, again, whether it does or does not deliver what you expect and need. So as an example of how this might look in practice, it could be how you engage with the procurement office or department within government, but outside of your lead agency. Approaching these questions from this perspective and considering your experiences will help to validate your responses and provide the most accurate response possible. It's also important to note that your written agreements will likely differ between the types of partners you're collaborating with. So for an example, you might have an MOU or an interagency agreement with other government agencies as you share services or align data and IT initiatives, share data, or partner in other ways. In contrast, you'll most likely have a formal written services agreement in the form of a contract or a purchase order or a statement of work when working with external partners. So these questions and the scan is really, helping to consider the details of these types of agreements that will help you to consider whether you're receiving the expected and necessary deliverables from these partners, as well as the specificity of the agreement into which you've entered, and if these are adequate in both policy and in practice. So the scan also includes a question related to artificial intelligence. DISC is interested in learning more about your thoughts on and plans for using AI or machine learning, sometimes referred to as ML, to improve business processes and outcomes. We know there's so much happening in these spaces and so many different use cases and opportunities for using these technologies. So the scan can help to document the current state of AI and ML usage and drive future collaboration, technical assistance, and shared learning opportunities. We also wanted to let folks know that the IT glossary is now available on the DISC website, and this can be a helpful resource for defining further terms like AI, artificial intelligence, and providing childcare examples and context. So we know we've shared a lot of information on the questions in the general section of the scan, and we want to provide an opportunity to pause and answer any questions that you may have before we move on to the other two sections of the scan. Meredith, do we have anything in the chat box to respond to?
We just had a request to put the web link for the glossary into the chat box. That's a great idea. Thank you. I will go ahead and put that in. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time, Ryan.
Okay, cool. We will just pause and hold space for anybody who wants to type in a question into the chat box before we move on. And as folks might be thinking about a question, we do actually have a poll kind of midway through the webinar today. And as we move into the next section, here's our quick poll. We just want to see how you might be thinking about your own approach to the scan. Again, we have a 4-question poll on Zoom, and we're asking just to think about and share with us and others on the webinar today, how are you planning to complete the scan? So our options are with other CCDF staff, with IT partners, independently, or kind of a NA, not applicable response if you might be on our webinar today but won't be completing the scan. So we'll keep the scan open, or the scan open. We'll keep the scan open until September 19th. We'll keep the poll open for about 30 seconds. All right, quick look at our responses. The majority of folks are planning on completing this with other CCDF staff. That's great. That's very cool. Again, please let us know if this can offer any kind of assistance in terms of how you're collaborating or sharing the scan with others, or kind of recording and consolidating and compiling your responses. Many of you are also thinking about completing this with other IT partners. And a couple people are, on our webinar today. We appreciate you taking the time, but are not necessarily planning on completing the scan. Appreciate your participation in that. Just a quick note that the link to the IT glossary is now available in the chat. So please feel free to check that out as needed. Okay, let's keep moving on. So the scan includes questions related to the technology upgrades or initiatives that you might be considering in order to fully implement the 2024 CCDF final rule. The questions are intended to measure the level of effort you expect will be needed to incorporate the policy or programmatic change into your data and IT systems. So you may still be in the early stages of these discussions with your data and IT partners, and you might be focusing on 1 or 2 priorities rather than the full array of changes, and that is totally fine. We know that there are so many moving parts and so many different existing starting points for lead agencies that not every question might have an answer at the moment. So we encourage you to think about and think through not just what the opportunities are that might be within reach for you, but also future upgrades and future technology changes, specifically for triennial plan years 2025 through 2027. So some examples here might include updates to the eligibility and enrollment technologies, or perhaps increased data sharing with other programs to support things like presumptive eligibility. Or you might be thinking about pursuing dynamic reporting and dashboarding to communicate real-time slot availability to families. Or you may be focused on ensuring that up-to-date licensing and monitoring information is made available to families to help inform their selection of quality childcare. So the questions in this section are really focusing on your understanding your approach to upgrading technology to support the implementation of the final rule. Here's just a really quick example of the question asked in this section of the scan as it relates to the final rule. The questions in this section follow a similar Likert scale as many of the previous questions, but we just wanted to note that there's an additional selection for us on our screen. It's the left-hand response that will provide your opportunity to indicate that the effort has already been implemented. So you might have already implemented this portion of the rule. So instead of 7 response options, we have 8 possible response options in this section focused on this CCDF 2024 final rule. So when thinking about your responses to these questions in this section, consider all aspects of full compliance of the rule once it reaches the stage of implementation in a data and IT system. So we'd like you to think holistically about some of your responses in the previous section related to your general IT processes. Things like how easy or difficult might it be to communicate the new requirement to those entities responsible for developing or enhancing the relevant data and IT system. Another question is how easy or difficult might it be to incorporate the new rules into existing CCDF processes that rely on a data or IT system. How will you need to procure new services perhaps to implement the rule? Or how easy or difficult might that process be based on your lead agency's processes? So the time it will take to fully implement the new rules within a data and IT system should also factor into your response. So we referenced earlier that the scan was kind of customized to ask questions that are related to specific areas of administering the CCDF program. We call these business functions in the scan. So the CCDF business functions that are included in the scan are eligibility and enrollment, subsidy payments for providers and families, consumer education, licensing and monitoring for providers, background checks, and quality activities, including provider staff development and certification. We know that there might be other critical aspects of administering the CCDF program that might not be included in this list of business functions. So as before, the scan uses similar sets of questions to collect information in each of these business functions you see on the slide. You might be using data and IT systems to support some or all of these components of the CCDF program, and the use of data and IT systems across these functions might be very different depending on whether or not they're supporting families, providers, or lead agency staff. They could also look different depending on which CCDF partners might operate the systems, such as a partner agency like a childcare resource and referral agency, or university partners. Because there's no one-size-fits-all approach to the CCDF program, we fully recognize that these functions will look differently across lead agencies, and the support that these data and IT systems that are provided will also be very different. Again, the goal is to help lead agencies have a baseline of their CCDF data and IT systems, and really a way to envision their ideal end state. This will help lead agencies map the change management and technology upgrade processes that are needed in the future. So in the scan, we've provided some definitions and examples within each business function to illustrate the types of technologies that you might be considering, such as desktop tools, cloud-based or web applications, or commercial off-the-shelf tools. So here's an example. This question addresses the eligibility and enrollment for families business function. The scan outlines some of the steps that you might take that could be technology related, which might begin with a family submitting an application for initial or renewal of CCDF benefits, and ending with the family being notified of their CCDF benefits or enrollment status. So this process might include milestones such as acknowledging receipt of the application from the family, determining whether the family is eligible for benefits, notifying the family about their eligibility decision, receiving the enrollment application from the family, and notifying the family about their CCDF benefits. So we've tried to lay out the what of this process, and we really hope that you'll be able to provide the how it works for you and your lead agency, and the how data and IT systems support you through this process. So identifying responses to the scan, identifying responses to the specific implementation and technology considerations within each business function as you complete the scan. So the additional business functions questions are laid out in a similar way. We mentioned these a minute ago: consumer education, quality activities, and subsidy support, among others. And that's really with the examples of those specific process steps and milestones for each function as well. So we're using a standard set of questions across each of these business functions to better understand how data and IT systems are supporting various components of CCDF, what is working for you, and where there are areas for improvement. This slide provides examples of what some of the questions will focus on, which will be recurring across the different business functions. As a quick example, we know that enrollment processes and eligibility criteria, they range widely from one CCDF lead agency to another. Similarly, the role of data and IT systems to support these business functions may look very different across states and territories. So the application processes related to eligibility determination and enrollment are some of the most concrete ways in which data and IT design choices might impact the experiences of families seeking affordable, quality childcare. So we want to better understand if these systems are accessible on things like mobile devices, if they're accessible to people with sensory impairments, as well as how data sharing supports a positive user experience by accurately determining presumptive eligibility and other areas of interaction between families and IT systems. Across all business functions, function sections of the scan, we want to better understand what technologies and IT tools are used to support those aspects of administering the CCDF program. Again, things like custom developed software, commercial off-the-shelf software, or low-code and no-code solutions that can be configured to meet your specific needs. So now we've gone through all sections of the scan. We'd like to pause again and take a few minutes to answer any questions that may have come up.
No questions at the chat box at this time, Ryan, but we do welcome folks to, as they're thinking and listening and learning more, to feel free to put questions in the chat box as we go.
Absolutely. Thanks, Meredith. I'll hold time and space just for a couple questions for folks to type in a question if you have one ready to go. And as Meredith said, please feel free to actively use the Zoom to ask any questions of us during our time today. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and pass things back over to Donna.
I really appreciate that. That was a great walkthrough. So in this last section of the webinar, we're going to talk for a few minutes about some of the reports and metrics that we envision that we'll be able to produce as a result of the inputs we get from all of the lead agencies. And these, I want to caution us right up front that these are examples only, and that we are still working on understanding how best to represent this information in a meaningful way that allows analysis. So we're committed to sharing back with the lead agencies that participate in the CCDF IT environment scan valuable data points and analyses that can help you understand your data and IT capabilities in relation to other lead agencies, and to help inform your future data and IT investments, your roadmap development, and the priorities that you set for your programs. We want to ensure that the scan results are immediately relevant and useful to you in the procurement and vendor management space. in aligning CCDF program changes with IT modernization efforts, and in improving human-centered design elements of data and IT systems to enhance the experiences for families and providers. We'll talk for a minute about the reports that we expect to generate with the data provided from your responses in the scan. These images on this slide and the following and a couple of the following slides that we'll talk about are only examples at this point in time, and the actual reports that DISC provides will likely look different. This slide is illustrating some question-specific responses. We'll look at all responses from lead agencies for each question, though. We can see visually how responses may be clustered. We can analyze questions very deeply to understand various filters from other questions based on agreement or satisfaction levels, or by state population or territory population, by licensing or QRAS approaches, or a wide variety of other metrics that can provide unique insights. The report may provide information about where your lead agency is in relation to other responses. And again, that is to help you be able to focus on areas that may be most beneficial for you to improve. Other respondents won't be identified in this report, but a chart like this one can help contextualize data points for you. There are many frameworks and visuals that can illustrate these points. This is one possible example for representing the scan data. So you may know that you responded as, slightly agree with something, but you may be able to see that, and this is just random data here without a whole lot of information. And we did that purposefully because we don't want to give any precepts away on the scan. But you would be able to see that, a lot of people responded higher than you, or a lot of people responded lower than you. And so you can kind of gauge where you fell in that, amongst the lead agencies to understand if you're, if that's an area that you might want to improve in. We believe that sharing these types of benchmarks in relationship to each other can strengthen the cases that you may already be making about how to improve your data and IT systems and transform to support policy and program changes, and also results from the 2024 CCDF final rule. But we also believe these kinds of outputs could help you with your, with garnering resources for funding, maybe for your program, and in showing that you need to, where you might need to put some additional dollars or some additional efforts into your IT and data systems, or where you maybe need some additional assistance from procurement or other folks in your organization, other partners, to help you make those kinds of improvements. And again, this is just one example. We are looking to at some other visuals that may help you. And this is only focusing on one question. There are times where we might want to compare and contrast the responses we got in one question with the responses we get in another question, because that gives us, some additional insights. And that's where we'll get into that deep analysis that will be available in the next year. So in the next slide, we'll talk for a minute about the options or some of the support that's available to you while the scan is open for completion. And again, that will be open until September 19th of 2024. At that time, the scan links to each of your agencies received will deactivate. We have 3 open office hours scheduled on August 14th, August 28th, and September 11th. So there's 2 time choices on each of those days, 11 to 12, and then from 6 to 7 at night. We understand many people have a very busy day, and you might need, some after hours support where you can maybe focus a little bit more and ask questions. So each date has those 2 sessions to accommodate different time zones as well. We want to make sure that we partner well with you and provide the time that you need when it's convenient for you. These times are available to ask questions. You can ask anything about the CCDF IT environment scan, such as Qualtrics functionality, or how you might better engage with IT partners on completing the scan, or how you might think about responding to any of the questions in the scan. The registration link for the office hours will be put into the chat, and you can register for one or more of the dates and times using the registration link. But I do want to emphasize that office hours are not intended to be information sessions. So these office hours are intended to answer specific questions for those people who will be completing the scan or who are participating in completing the scan. The DISC representatives will not provide additional general information as part of the office hours. We don't have any planned presentation or anything of that nature. We will just be there ready, willing, and able to answer any of your questions that you have. And let's see, Meredith, I think you're going to share in the chat that link to the Zoom office hours. So if you do that, I'd appreciate that. And DISC is also available via email for any other individual support that you might need. We want to make sure that we are accessible and helpful to you as you complete the scan. So we'll put our email in the chat box as well, but we have, included it here a number of times. It is disc@klscottassociates.com. And when we receive those emails, we typically respond to them pretty quickly. So please look for a response for us, especially if you are emailing us to tell us that you want to include other people in gathering the responses to the scan, because we will have to have a conversation about that to make sure that we represent your responses the way that you want them represented. So we will be reaching back out quickly. So at this time, we want to take a few minutes and see what questions you may have and discuss how DISC can support you in completing the CCDF scan. Does anybody have any questions, Meredith, or are there any in the chat box or the Q&A box?
Nothing in the Q&A box at this time. Donna, just to kind of recap what I heard you say, that folks are welcome to email us if they have any questions, or the CCDF administrator who would have expected the scan did not receive the scan, they could email us, and then the office hours for specific questions that folks might bring.
That's correct. Thank you for that, Meredith. Okay, if there are no questions, we have a closing poll for you that we ask that you complete about this webinar. And if anything comes up, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please take a few minutes to complete the closing poll, and we will then end the meeting. Thank you. We'll give it about another 30 seconds or so. Okay, Shannon, I'll turn it back over to you or Meredith. If you can see who's still on the line and maybe completing their polls, and we can end.
All right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Donna. No worries. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and keep the poll open until 3 p.m. as well as the meeting. But once you complete the poll, you are free to log off. And again, we do thank you for your time today.